What made you end a friendship? His dick in my girlfriend. Realizing that every time you're around that person, you feel put down and diminished. #BYE Felicia. Only was around for the good times, and disappeared when I was struggling. Said this before on here but found out my best friend from freshman year of college was a date rapist who took advantage of drunk girls at frat parties. I hope he dies in a hole. I felt like I was just being used as a stopgap from one party to the next, like I was there just for when their parties weren't available. A friend constantly borrowed cash and never returned them. Then found out the same friend was stealing from me, things that just magically disappear when I thought all my life that I've just lost or misplaced them. Then there's the backstabbing and constant rumor spreading, I tolerated for years because I was trying to convince myself that that friend is not doing such thing. Talk about a really toxic person. She cheated on her husband and expected me to cover for her because of girl code. I cut a friend recently because he kept putting me in a box I apparently wasn't fitting in. I know I'm not the greatest person, but hot damn, don't need to text me paragraphs about how much of a shit person I am after every time we meet. It became one-sided. We got along fine. But as time went by, if I didn't make the effort at arranging to see each other and staying in touch on a reasonable basis, nothing would happen. Well, if one of my oldest friends who I knew for nearly 20 years, had seen each other through more heartache and tough times than we ever thought we would have, and who performed my wedding ceremony saw this post, he would tell you he ended his friendship with me because I supported gay marriage. Ghosted me after nearly 2 decades of friendship. I knew he was religious, I didn't know he was crazy. We were roommates, childhood best friends, considered ourselves sisters. I came home to her boyfriend outright raping her. I threatened to end his life, she defended him and attacked me back even with fresh bruises blooming all over her body and bleeding from between her legs. She kicked me out of the apartment the next day and we haven't spoken since. Can't find anything of her on Facebook either, so I'm probably blocked. I hope she's doing okay. She'd been heading down a dark path to self-destruction for a while before that, and I have a feeling she didn't feel she deserved to be saved. Found out he whipped his dick out on a 15-year-old. He only saw me as some sort of competition. We were quite similar and grew up very close since we had quite a lot in common. But I noticed that as we were hitting puberty and girls were becoming more important to us, he would sometimes try to make me look bad or worse than him in front of others so that he would look better than me or something. I definitely didn't notice too much or take much care about it since we were close, but it just didn't stop. Even after I was with someone, it always felt like he was still trying to compete with me on who had the better life, job, etc. I kinda just had enough and talked less to him, and the friendship has kinda slowly faded a bit. I just don't understand why some people have to be so competitive with everything all the time, it's exhausting. I ended a friendship because I wanted to post here. Became a toxic person around them and decided to leave them alone before my mental health got worse. It did though, but at least no one besides me had to suffer. She admitted that she was cheating on her husband. Showed me not safe for work snaps she received, sent to an ex and a stranger. Husband didn't believe me and my husband. Funnily enough, 9 months later they're getting divorced and me and my husband are the only people he could turn to. She isolated him from everyone else and they wouldn't interact with him after the fact. Dude didn't accept me being gay. Like, what? Used me only as their therapist, I was never the friend invited out to have fun with. Drug use. I wanted to get clean, had to remove all those that didn't want to from my life. Finding out that they were hanging out with mutuals all the time without inviting me. Sounds petty, but I figured that a real friend would want me around rather than avoid me. Consistent disregard of timetable. Yo, you wanna meet at 11? Don't mind if you're waiting till 12:39 for me to show up. That was the straw. We are both professionals. We show up on time. I moved away and we kept in touch. But after a while I had to initiate every contact. That's not a friendship. I ended a friendship with 2 girls at once because when they found out I was queer, months into our friendship, they started saying I was too touchy-feely when we drank. BITTTCCCCHHH. Just cause I banged your friend doesn't mean I'll ever want to touch either of you. By hand waving. At a girls only night, having drinks playing strip poker for laughs. I thought girl code was in place. A girl snapped a pic of me without me knowing once I lost my top to the game, sent that to 2 guys, who were friends my boyfriend. That hurt on a lot of levels. Blocked her on everything and never spoke to her again. The constant barrage of self-induced drama. There wasn't a single day that went by without some new emergency they nearly always created themselves. Bonus points for every crisis caused by asking my advice and promptly ignoring it, followed by telling me they should have taken my advice. All the while whinging and moaning about how terrible everything was, how nothing good ever happened to them, everyone was out to get them, etc. The really fun part was when I had a legitimate issue and was told I had a victim complex. No thanks, bye. I found out he sexually abused a woman because the victim posted the story online and I decided that my friendship had limits. Sent him the post, told him to fuck off and never spoke to him again. This is a really recent situation for me. COVID denial, mask denial, the Tim Roth meme. I lost my uncle due to COVID. He was a nice man, yet my ex-best friend believes that people like him should die so the world can open back up, all because he had an underlying health condition. Crazy. Sorry for oversharing. When I realized I never heard from her unless she needed something. I didn't even get a text when I was on life support. Don't need friends like that. Multi-level marketing. I became a target for sales and team building. And when I wasn't interested she sort of ghosted me. I finally stopped trying because even when we did hang out together, all she could talk about was Mary Kay. I'm 75 and had this one friend since I was 18. I knew his whole family as well. They were all great people who inquired about how I may be doing, my children, wives or girlfriends, health etc. over the years. Just showing genuine concern, just as I did with him and his family. One day he asked me for a ride over to his GF's house, which I had done before. On this day however, it suddenly dawned on me that all he ever did mostly was ask for whatever he wanted and complain. Not ever inquiry about me or my family. I decided then and there that we were not really friends, just acquaintances. Maybe it was my fault for regarding him as a friend. This kind of person is narcissistic and too self-centered to really be concerned about others. It's been 6 to 7 years now. I stopped initiating conversation first and we never talked again. Realizing that a friend absolutely cannot be trusted. Back in high school I hated confrontation and fighting and was a bit of a pushover. I was friends with a girl who took advantage of this. She would always do something mean to me, then apologize and promise to change and all would be forgiven. The problem was, instead of actually changing her behavior, the more times I forgave her the worse she treated me as she began to think that she could get away with doing whatever she wanted as I would always forgive her. One day I told her enough was enough, and she couldn't keep expecting forgiveness. She got mad and accused me of ruining our friendship. But in reality it was ruined from the moment she thought she could treat me however she liked as she never expected me to stand up to her. I stopped being the one who always messaged first and then realized it was always a one-way friendship. MAGA supporter. But it's more than that. Dude doesn't like people of color, which is 1 anti-American and 2 I am a person of color. Been friends for 15 years and I've been in his house as much as my own. I'm a very introverted person. I've ended a number of friendships by ghosting, not with an intent to be an asshole, but because they really wanted to hang out a lot and or go out a lot and I was just worn out by it. It is maybe an introvert's dilemma. You make friends more easily with extroverts but then they want way more than you can give. Sometimes I'd commit to something thinking it sounds like a fun thing but then the day rolls around and I'm just too wiped out to be around people. Eventually I assume they decide I don't like them or am too flaky to be worth the effort. He was depressed and it got out the worst part of him. Me and our group of friends tried everything to help him, but he didn't wanted to talk about it. He insisted he was seeing a therapist and was getting better, but in social media and also the times we hung out he would mouth horrible things about women and say things like, men and women can't be friends, there's not such a thing. Top bottom was when he told another friend, girl too, that yeah, he appreciated us and liked us as a friend, but before a friend of us, he was a man and he wouldn't waste any opportunity to get into our pants. That's when it hit me. I didn't want to be another of those girls that got rapped by one of her best friends. I couldn't trust him anymore, so I cut contact. Just didn't feel like a true friendship. You know how you can not see someone for ages and then come back like nothing ever happened? Not the case with these friends. It felt like when they came to see me it was because they had to. So I just cut them off. Made some new friends. I have a friend in Colorado that messages me and talks and checks in more than they ever did. That's what separates the true from the fake. Finding out a person is racist, sexist, anti-LGBTQ. It seems before 2016 in the US, a lot of people were pretty good at hiding it, but now it's just sort of accepted. If I see that someone consistently acts that way, the friendship is over. Mons came and was cocky as fuck. He made new friends and was condescending to me. He used girls and didn't like how I smoked weed. I stopped and he started, and now he's a bigger stoner than I ever was. He's just a dick. Someone who I thought was a close friend didn't so much as send a text when my mom passed away. Then wanted to blame me for his lack of reaching out because I was acting weird before my mom passed, while I was going through hell and needed support. He knew my mom and I were close. Around the same time frame, another friend was checking on me, and then asked if I could spot him $200 for a month. So I lost two people who I thought had my back right after my mom passed. You really figure out who's truly in your corner and who's just acting when you're at your lowest. He was becoming a pedophile and did some disgusting shit in Boy Scouts. He was kicked out, but legal action never followed, possibly because he was still under 18. Still doesn't make what he did okay in any way. Luckily the friendship had been drifting apart since we had different schedules once we started high school. Made it easier to avoid him until I could block him without confrontation post-graduation. A relationship with said friend. I plan on ending a friendship, 'cause the guy always says stuff like, "Wanna fight? I'll drop you," and today he was a jerk to one of the nicest persons in my class. When one of my other friends told him to stop being a jerk, he said to, "Shut up, this isn't about you." She ordered tuna salad on a cinnamon raisin bagel. My friend had an abusive boyfriend and I was by no means silent about my thoughts on his treatment of her. I invited her to my housewarming but kindly told her he was not welcome. The morning of I found out she was planning on bringing him anyways, so I called her. She didn't answer, so I sent a polite text reminder her he wasn't welcome. After that she told anyone she could get her hands on. I was just jealous of her relationship as I was single amongst other nastiness, so I cut contact and never looked back. Few weeks ago I received the "you were right about him" text, but the damage was done. He wanted to kiss me and I said no. He then refuses to let me leave the car unless I kiss him, but after an uncomfortable amount of time of me still saying no he let me leave. Ended it when he went off the deep end and went all QAnon conspiracy theory bullshit. Still meet him on occasions to try and show him the light, but man, that shit is depressing and I don't have the stomach to be one of his few links to reality. She was never genuinely happy for me. She would congratulate me for my accomplishments and then complain that she would never get as lucky as me. She wanted me to reassure her and I would, but I knew luckiness has nothing to do with it. I reached a point where whenever something worth celebrating happened, I dreaded mentioning it to her. Add that to the fact that she started acting very selfishly recently and I was so disappointed in who she really was as a person that I realized I was just done with it all. That was about 3 weeks ago. I cut all contact. No regrets. She told me I wasn't supporting her through her depression enough. I really did try. I was 13, mind you. She would often describe ways she could kill herself to me and threatened to kill herself whenever we argued. She was mad when I said she was scaring me. There was more bad things going on, but this was the tipping point for me.